industry for a long, long time. Okay, first of all, we've got Henry Smith. Henry's the sales director for Fleet Africa at Mixed Telematics. Where's Dup? Sorry, everybody. We just want to get Dup up there. Dup, are you there? You just click on your video. Where'd you go? Hey? Okay, can you hear me? Can everyone hear me? Just nod 30 or say yeah. Yeah, okay. All right, everybody. Kylie just going to phone Dup and see if he's having a problem there. Right, so we've got Henry Smith. Henry's the sales director for Fleet Africa and Mixed Telematics. He spent 18 years of his career in the telematics industry. Remember, Henry, when it wasn't known as telematics, that word came in along the road and all of us said, what on earth is telematics? Before it used to be fleet tracking and recovery. Dup, you're back. Fantastic. Henry, of course, has a keen interest in technology, which is where telematics has gone in great leaps and bounds to the benefit of the industry, and communications, of course. And his special focus is on the intelligence that it provides to drive business. Henry, you and intelligence, that's a bit of a misnomer.
Absolutely, Pep. Absolutely, but that's why we're still here.
My man. Okay, I can tell you now that Henry's attitude about business and his personal life is underpinned. Listen to this. Isn't this nice to hear this in an era where we see nothing but corruption, bad ethics, and a whole lot of horrible things? Underpinned by a philosophy of honesty, openness, and constant learning. So that's Henry. Henry's with Mixed Telematics, and I'll go into that a little bit now. Then, of course, we have Ferdy Gobi. Hangman Ferdy goes back a long time in this industry. You know, he operates in the high-risk arena of crime, and he's an amazing man. He's been around for many, many years. He was initially with Capital Air, and used to chase hijackers there. And he's a highly motivated and very versatile. He's had so much experience. Was a former cop as well. Across-the-board experience in all aspects of operational risk and quantified solutions. He uses strategic risk management systems and controls to analytically identify and measure threats towards a prevention and mitigation plan. That's very important. Those are big words, but prevention, like preventive maintenance, stops you having a breakdown on the road, and a mitigation plan. So all that intelligence, you've heard of A1, artificial intelligence. This is human intelligence based on experience. And he's got a unique partnership approach. He's always been a team member, but he's been privileged to provide solutions throughout sub-Saharan Africa in the following sectors, not just tracking: telemetry, banking, financial institutions, telecommunication and mobile networks, transport, logistics and warehousing, technology, insurance, security, and mining. Now, that's a hang of a wide spec. And, you know, what's interesting having Ferdy on today is also he looks at a lot of problems starting across or spanning across the total supply chain, from warehousing to the product on the shelf. It's the total supply chain. So he identifies risks there. And then, of course, we have on my bottom right corner, we have a great man, also a former cop. You can see it. Look at it. Give a mean look there. Look. There we are. No, he hasn't given a mean look. Look, can you hear us? There we are. His mean look is a big smile. This man, Dup du Preez, is an amazing man. He helped us handing out food to truck drivers. He's got a passion for the industry. He's also got a passion for the safety of the industry. He's actually a forensic investigator for the Samila Group, and he's truck stop manager of the Val One Stop near the Volga Plaza. Now, Dup is also a firm believer in teamwork. And when he started at Villiers in 1993, that's a long time ago, I'm going to show you something about that. He built up several contacts along the N3, with some of those members still working for the SAPS on this route. And with many years of combined experience under their belts, members of this highly passionate team react to incidents when called upon to do so. And it's resulted in huge successes being recorded against vehicle crime on this route. And I can vouch for that. I listen in on these guys when they're active, when they communicate communicating with each other live on site. It's the most amazing teamwork that I've ever seen. It's really incredible, all in all. And Doop's going to tell us about that. And then we've got another gentleman who was with us today. And to all our people out there, we do apologize from Naveshan Mudley, an operator. He's actually managing director of Momentum Logistics. He phoned us yesterday, was hugely apologetic. And he had to go see a client urgently, a big client, one of his biggest clients. And of course, he said, Pat, I can't ignore the client, in today's climate. And so I will, however, do a little presentation on his behalf to show what happens when one of your trucks gets hit in a protest, service delivery protest. So that's a welcome to everybody. And that's the introduction to everybody. And welcome to everyone out there. And we've got there, you can see, organizer is Kylie O'Leary. She's sitting there behind a computer, making sure we do all this right. We're all old bullies here, you can see. So the technology is all new to us and new to a whole lot of you out there, no doubt. But what is not new and what is even better than technology is the expertise embraced in this team that you're going to listen to today. Okay, so just to go back a bit, Kylie, how do I go to that? I'll just push the slide, eh? Okay, this is very interesting. Nothing new. This was Fleet Watch's very first edition. And what did we have on the cover? A hijacker. It was actually my driver with my shotgun at that time, because you can't find them to pose like that. But this was our very first edition in 1993. And so that is when the South African Transport Security Association was around. And we'll come to that at the end. It was a very, very worthwhile body. And so it's nothing new that we're dealing with, but a lot has changed. And then if we go back, the rise of vehicle tracking and recovery sector. Henry, you'll notice there was no telematics in there. That's what it was called in those days. There were lots of players. And Dave Brenton, who, as I say, was going on today, was going to be with us, but cannot. He was one of the first guys, worked for XPS and FedEx in those days. And they sort of, along with Purdy was also involved in those days in the air and ground forces, they devised methods of tracking or recovering trucks. A lot of people say, fleet management today is the buzzword all over the place because it's caught on overseas. But over here, the whole telematics industry, and we were world leaders. I say that again, world leaders. Unfortunately, it was because we had to recover the trucks that were hijacked and stolen. But technology was used because the cops weren't keeping up. And in those days, you'll see at the bottom there, we had the truck hijack unit of the South African Police, SAPS, was led by Marius Libber and his crew. Did a fantastic job. That was eventually disbanded and put into the murder and robbery squad, where that was the last we heard of it. I'm not saying there's nothing out there from the cops, but I think it's individual effort rather than a concerted, focused effort. You had the early companies like Mixed Telematics, who we're privileged to have today, Netstar, CarTrack, Capital Air, Tracker. There were many, many more, and some were real chances. I remember one crowd that I went to their launch, and they gave me this massive gift, and it was really nice. But I said to them, how many systems have you sold? And they said, no, none yet. We're going to be selling. I said, so why are you giving me a gift? Spend that money on catching the trucks. Don't spend it on giving me a gift to try and get me to write a nice story. They didn't last very long. Another crowd, 3 of them came into my office. They had a system from the garage at home. The other guy had sold his wife's car. I must have been dearing him to his wife. And the other guy was, I forget what he was. But I said to him, guys, where have you got your money? Give us your structure, your infrastructure. And that was it. Working from a garage, sold a wild car. Oh, yeah, the other guy took a second bond on the house. And they wanted to advertise. And I said, no, I'm not going to take your advert. I'm not going to take your money. And I said, why? Because if we advertise, because everyone used to see big truck, big figures, big money. They didn't see long return on investment and a hard grind forward. And anyway, so they were very annoyed with me because I said to them, guys, I'm going to send you an invoice, then a statement, and you're not going to pay because you won't be in business. There were so many. It was more than just a dot on a map. And in those days, it was vehicle tracking recovery. So there were many more in there. So it's not new. But this is what we're dealing with today, what the subject today: hijacking, looting, trucks getting caught in protest service delivery attacks, labor issue attacks, the ATDF. You can see there. Now, this is interesting. I don't even see my cursor on there. This was personal protection equipment. This truck picked it up at the Oliver Tambo, and it got hijacked out the gates in Germiston. All that stuff went. This year of the tires stolen was last night at a Bloem truck stop. Last night. That truck burning was during the ATDF attacks, and there's looting. You can see value truck in the Western Cape. There's another truck burnt. We can't get a picture of a hijacking because they come afterwards, and that's where these good guys catch them afterwards. So very difficult to get a picture. They don't say, just hang on. But last night, to show you that it's not in the past, 1993, we launched it. It's not about history, it's about today. Trailers are taken in a hijack in the R59, last known position on Wits Rifle Road, Germiston. These are just some notes. I belong to a lot of these groups. And today, July 6th, protest action on the R33 between Greytown and Dundee. The roadway is closed at Ngome. And this is from a transporter. A transporter loses another truck and asks this question: why must we as transporters pay for the government's incompetence to deliver services? How many more trucks must we lose? Yet another truck lost. Others are burning. It's a sad, sad reality. What used to be a passion is becoming a burden. And this from Clint Brook from Logica Logistics. We are not supported in any way, shape, or form by the Minister of Transport. He's talking about the trucking industry. There's absolutely nothing he does for this industry to make our lives easier. And this despite us paying huge fees such as license and toll fee. He can't even make decent laybys on the side of the road for our drivers to rest if they are tired. We see nothing but corruption. Everything regarding running trucks is a nightmare. So that's just a sort of intro. It's been a massive problem for a long, long time. And so what is the state of hijacking now? What are we looking at now? Are we winning? Are we losing? We've seen a rise in hijacking. Obviously, the figures after lockdown showed a decrease, but that showed a decrease in crime all over the place, especially vehicle crime. In level 5, level 4, it started going up again. And what is the situation today? So to sketch out now mixed telematics, we're going to bring Henry up first. And Henry's got a presentation for us to what the situation is, maybe some of the figures. And, mixed telematics started as matrix vehicle tracking many, many years ago. So, Henry, what's it looking? What are you guys looking at? You've got a number of commercial vehicles on your books. What are you looking at the situation now? How does it stand for us?
Patrick, good morning, and thank you again. Thank you for Fleet Watch and for the bigger Fleet Watch family for having us this morning. We're very proud of our association with your publication and the contribution that we can make to the industry. Also, a big thank you to all the co-presenters and everybody that's made the time to attend this morning's presentation. I think if we, obviously from a holistic perspective, it's absolutely a burning issue. If we pardon the pun, I think we've all seen the labor unrest and everything else that is going on. And I think there's if we look at the incapacity of the government and everybody to provide services, then there's times that we feel like we're losing this battle. We do believe that from a strategic perspective, there's still a lot that we can do. And that's what we would like to focus this morning on. So again, just getting back to the knowns. So as you correctly reported in phase 5 of lockdown, we've seen a decrease in stats. But unfortunately, if we look at year on year, March 2019 to March 2022, we see a significant increase in crime-related incidents and very specifically car hijackings across South Africa. These figures were obviously audited. So there's roughly 18,128 hijackings that takes place per annum in South Africa. So it gives us effectively a rate of around about 50 hijackings per day. I think we would all agree that that these figures are understated in terms of the way that it's reported, but I do think it does give us some indication of where the needle sits. I think the one thing that was again interesting for us this morning in the intro, you spoke about the fact that we focus a lot about analytics and actionable insights. Again, we went through last year's hijacking statistics and the theft statistics, and we focused on the hijacking specifically and specifically for this session. And it was, again, an eye-opener for us to just realize, again, that 65% or 11,000 hijackings incidents that took place during the previous physical year all took place outside of normal operating hours. So normal operating hours we quantify 6 in the morning till 6 at night, and then with a lower amount of 28% of hijackings taking place over weekends. And on the weekend fleets, we see a lot of increase, obviously, there in light commercial and sedans, but a lot of the commercial vehicles in and around those dead areas. So a bleak picture, definitely. If we look at it, how it stacks up against our own statistics, like you've correctly said, is we started off the year relatively slow because of level 5 lockdown. But the moment the lockdown started to lift, so that the increase in criminal activity. And since May 2020, we've seen a 32% increase in hijacking, in possible hijacking incidents. What is also very interesting is if we look on year, and if we go back to where the country is and the need of the people out there, it is no surprise to see that the incidence year has increased by 33%. And we've seen that same in May. And we've seen the same statistics in both June and July of 2020. So a bleak picture indeed. If we look at if we look at some of the international studies that was done, the 2019 Supply Chain Intelligence Center, if we look at their statistics, I took a snapshot of the EMEA region. And in the EMEA region, South Africa has the highest number of violence used in the region, where they use firearms, explosives, and anything else in terms of committing these crimes. Again, we see that a number of the incidents are unreported. And in our case, especially when it comes to the load, losses often include full truckloads, and not just from a goods perspective, but also from an asset perspective. And then, as we know, is we've got a very brazen criminal activity and modus operandi out there, and the guys aren't scared to use explosive firearms and everything else that goes with it. So we find that the incidents are very violent of nature. So if we look at the classification, the bulk of South Africa sits in what they call a severe state, and then with the Western Cape sitting in an elevated state. So I think if we look at these, then we can ask ourselves but are we winning and are we losing? And I think the one challenge that we put to ourselves here at Mix is just to say, how do we build an effective defensive line against the current and all the future threats that's hitting us? I think one of the things that you alluded to earlier is I remember I had the privilege of being with one of those companies that you had on your slide in the early days. And I think we would all agree that back then we thought it was difficult, but if we look back, I think, we would all say that in those days it was a lot easier than what it is today. And there's a level of sophistication that sits in the criminal element and all the looting and everything that goes on. And we definitely have to build a multi-layer risk mitigation strategy. And I think over the past 2 decades, we've proved our agility as Mix to adapt to these. And one of the things that we've proven time and time again around multiple security and safety structures is that you have to have a layered defense. So in our world, we think it's really important for the transporters out there and for our customers and for the customers of other telematic services providers, make sure that when you select your physical security, as we said, there's no substitution for a robust physical security equipment to protect your vehicle and your cargo. But when specifying these, make sure that it's fit for purpose and that it is robust and minimizes the risk of abuse. And that includes your telematics, your trailer tracking, your cargo locks, your stolen vehicle recovery solutions, and your in-vehicle video solutions. The second component to that, and it's again something I think that we spend a lot of time on in understanding our customers' operations, and then understanding the risk that sits on the transporter side, is just to help these guys around policy and procedure. It's very important that your policy and procedures fit for purpose, robust yet agile, and that your policies and procedures are continuously reviewed for effectiveness and relevance. while instilling a culture of accountability for all stakeholders. We all understand that we can write up as many policies as we like. I think this has to be a living, breathing organism whereby we adapt. If we just look at what's happened in our country over the last 7 months, we all talk about what this new world's going to look like, after we go through this pandemic. And I think the one thing that has taught us is that we have to be a lot more agile in our approach, but also in our execution. What worked yesterday definitely will not work tomorrow in this fast-changing world that we're living in. And I think then the third component to that layer for us is a partner with a purpose. You alluded to it earlier. I've done a couple of these talks in my life, and I remember in the early days of telematics, when it just started, and like you correctly said, when it was still called fleet tracking, you could do a Google search and you would find 240 plus services providers in South Africa providing services, from in various forms and formats. I think it's only increasing with technology that's becoming more and more available, and platforms that is available, new platforms that's available on a daily basis. So I fundamentally believe that you need to choose, if you want to win this fight, you have to partner with a partner that is a specialist in risk mitigation. I know that most guys today offer stolen vehicle recovery services, and we've spoken about the value of the rent tracks and these guys of the world, and they do an immense job. I just looked at some of the financial figures and what the impact it is that we're having on an industry from a stolen vehicle recovery perspective, and it's immense. But there's a difference between just your stolen vehicle recovery component and a specialized risk mitigation partner. And I think it's really, really, really important that you select a partner that understands risk and uses the technology, smart intelligence, analytics, predictive analytics, and combine that with the so what component of it, which means that there's physical monitoring and execution for risk-related incidents. Somebody that partners with you, and it's not just the service provider, understand the risk and starts to co-manage the risk with you. One of the examples that we've got within the mixed world on how we offer such a service is over and above our stolen vehicle recovery services. We offer a specialized risk mitigation service, an independent service that is committed to ensuring driver compliance, increased fleet productivity, and the co-management and mitigation of risk while promoting transparency and accountability. One of the things that we spoke about a little bit earlier and that you alluded to is just the unrest. And we've seen the value of just knowing of these incidents. And like you've correctly also said, Pat, is there's phenomenal networks, WhatsApp groups and communication groups throughout the industry. And the quicker we can communicate to these guys, the quicker we're in a position where we can assist with the mitigation of risk. And whether that's through predictive traffic patterns or predictive crime statistics that is used. From a day-to-day operation side, we've got trained agents, again, the independent side of it, that drives predetermined driving criteria with real-time notifications. One of the we only have one national telco service provider, but one of the big telcos that's with us we run them through that center. They have roughly 6,500 assets with us. And within the first 30 to 45 days that they were with us, the fact that we proactively communicate and react on incidents, we were able to bring down the average driver score by roughly 3%. So accident reduction, maintenance reduction, risk reduction, everything else that goes with it. We take action on all critical events that is triggered from a driver perspective, and we react to those. And then serious incidents like hijacking and vehicle theft can be escalated immediately and increase the chances of securing both cargo, asset, as well as the driver, protecting human life. I think in this effort, we have to realize that the human capital component is a massive component, and it's our responsibility to make sure that we drive a safer world. I think from a pure risk perspective, what does it mean? It means is that we drive the risk mitigation center, as I said earlier, and we understand that with your physical security, your vehicle telematics, your stolen vehicle recovery device, the software that goes with it, the control rooms that the operators run, everybody, it's a big operation and there's lots of eyes on screen. The one thing that we've done differently in the industry is we've identified the key metrics that indicates risk, and we've built an automated system that allows us to proactively pick up on these and proactively manage it and make sure that there's as little human interaction in terms of picking up on an incident as possible. So the way that we engage on this is we would engage a customer, we would set up a set of standard operating procedures in terms of risk mitigation, and then we would execute those as we would upload it into our software and then make sure that between software and operators that we execute on these effectively. And that means there's any unscheduled stop. So whether it's on a high-risk route or a high-risk time, drivers would be phoned immediately. We would immediately have eyes on screen. Possible jamming incidents. We all talk about jamming detection. We understand where it is from a technology perspective, where we stand as an industry. But again, we work very closely around that and make sure that we drive it really hard. And then from where possible and where we've got the ability on the vehicles, to put those vehicles into limp mode and through that help save loads on these vehicles. Early and late departures, there's a very definite trend. And as I mentioned earlier, with 60+% of all of these incidents happening when there's physically nobody at the commercial property, it's really important to have eyes on screen on those vehicles during those times. Call for assistance or panic buttons assisted, potentially impact detection. So whether it's a real accident or just a vehicle bumping, again, all of those addressing risk. Entry of predefined high-risk areas. We've been doing go and no-go zones for many years. These are extended to high-risk zones. These are extended to border crossings. And I think the one dynamic around what we do is we understand that we understand what's high risk for the customer, and we understand what's high risk for our base. And I think the one thing that we're doing exceptionally well is to share those learnings with our customers. And even if a vehicle goes into a high risk area that we know as mixed as high risk area, but it's not necessarily highlighted by the customer as a high risk area, that asset will still be closely monitored by us throughout that period. And then the last indicator there is obviously, or the second last one is excessive driving hours. Fatigue also plays a role when it comes to both risk from a physical loss perspective and an accident perspective, but also from an awareness perspective. So we work very hard to make sure that we drive a safer driving environment all around for everybody in the country. And then the last physical indicator there is power disconnect. So we physically take responsibility of those. We've got this independent center that runs these alarms that interact with both the operators and the escalation levels within the organizations in real time. And we manage the entire incident with then at the end of the management of the incident, a detailed feedback being provided to the customer. So some of the key advantages for us is you've got a secure environment with independent agents providing 24/7 visibility of the fleet. Standard pre-agreed operating procedure and a service level agreement for the handling of all exception-based events. Specialized software, I've mentioned it earlier. I think that's one of the things that we really have done differently is just to make sure that we maintain and manage the agreed workflows. With that, we then create visibility by providing a detailed incident report following the theft or hijacking to the customer, automate a digital occurrence book daily and weekly. And again, from a transparency perspective, is we provide the entire incident chain to the customer from the time the technology generated the event, how that flowed through our back office, how the incident was handled by the controllers in terms of the preset workflow until the conclusion. And at the end of that, we also provide the voice logs around those so that our customers have got complete transparency of how that event was handled. Weekly automated customer feedback, and then very importantly, through our customer services managers, a monthly and a quarterly engagement with the customer to make sure that we drive incidents down. Also, I think what is very important is we want to drive that improvement and we want to drive that risk. It's not just good enough to have the information. We must make sure that it follows through. Again, go back to the policy and procedure, use the statistical data, make sure we rework it back into that world. In terms of physical security, I think the one thing that I would just like to highlight is video telematics. I think where we are today as a country and as an industry, we're sitting at a point where video telematics is a mature solution in terms of in-vehicle video monitoring, and it adds just another layer in terms of our physical security layer. It facilitates driver engagement and driver improvement. the accuracy of data of an incident recollection. In a previous study, we've done a study on the recollection of trauma around accidents, hijackings, those type of things. And one thing that all the psychologists told us is that as individuals, your brain will only allow you to remember what your brain can handle. So it's not that your driver is not telling you the full truth. He's telling you the full truth of what he or she can remember at that point in time. And with video and audio, you have then a complete 3D view in terms of that. Liability protection in terms of or physical threat from an insurance perspective, either from an internal or an external perspective. We had a national haulier with high good values from the Eastern Cape area, roughly 200 vehicles that he runs with us. He had in a 90-day sequence, he typically had 1 to 1.5 incidents per 90-day cycle. We've deployed our kit there with a BME, with Track and React, and we've changed that world where in the last 12 months, there was only one incident. And when we got the internal investigators involved in the incident, they proved that the driver was in cahoots, and that was the last incident that we've had. So just adding that improved layer obviously means better customer service, improved security layer, and assist us in terms of law enforcement. So I think in closing off, we're very bullish about the fact that we believe that we add big value to the industry. We understand the challenges and the risks that we've got, heading up against us. I think just in this week, we saw that we've received 2 accolades from just from world organizations in terms of commercial telematics. And we understand that if we continuously evolve and if we continuously stay very close to our customers and to the realities of the ground, that we would be able to provide really robust alternatives to the challenges that we're facing, and that we can help our customers and the fleet operators out there to keep on moving forward, improve efficiencies, and to co-manage risk in terms of their risk exposure. Pat, and that is our view on the lay of the land.
It's come so far, hasn't it, Henry, from those early days, all the different offerings and the risk mitigation, and it's quite amazing how far this industry come. And I'm glad you mentioned the word partnership. I think if one thing that stands out for me from the COVID era, and is the need for, I think, telematics comes into its own now. With transporters cannot afford any longer to waste 1 cent of fuel. I've said this before, 1 extra kilometer. And I think companies like Mix and other fleet, you did actually give credit to other companies out there. There are some very good companies out there.
Absolutely.
And I know you're recognized by them and they are recognized by you. And you've all been working very hard to get this going. So I'm glad you said about the partnership. We've got 2 questions here. Henry,
yes, sir.
Are specific goods or loads targeted more, or are the attacks random?
Patrick, so obviously there's fast-moving consumables that will always remain, on the hit list. So I think anything with a retail value has got a potential target on its back. And I think history has shown us is that there's a component of random attacks. But I think largely we have to understand that the syndicate world is very well equipped and very well structured. So it's organized crime at its best.
Yeah, I think that's an important point to the gentleman, Audrey Alguero, who asked the question. People often get confused with truck looting. Those normally happen, when close to a township or somewhere where people are hungry and something happens and the truck gets looted. That's not a hijacking. And people
absolutely.
That's why I say, are we winning in truck hijacking and looting? It's a very big difference, and people often confuse them. The hijacking scenario is, and always has been, very organized crime involved. I remember one where we came across a warehouse. I was called in by the truck hijacking unit many years ago. They found, I don't know who was tracking it, but it was one of the early companies. And the driver was found dead in his cab. He had been shot dead in Shamdor. and they tracked it all the way back to a warehouse in Newland. 24 million rand. It was like a macro inside there.
Wow.
Very organized. But right, Henry, next one. How ripe is driver connivance with robbers? Can we classify it as a major contributing factor to the high stats of hijacking?
So, Patrick, we fundamentally believe, as Mixed Telematics, that our drivers plays a major role in keeping the fleets in South Africa moving forward. We see them as part of our asset base and not part of our liability base. We have to accept that in every packet, there's that one rotten apple. But fundamentally, our drivers are in this country are good drivers and contributing immensely to the economy and moving this economy forward. So I think it is important to realize that you will always have those rotten apples. And that's when it comes to policy, which includes stuff like the recruitment thereof of staff is immensely important. But fundamentally, I think if we take the amount of registered drivers in this country, I would say I would put my hat on it to say we've got really good drivers that want to be part of the solution.
Okay, great. We're going to come back to other questions, or Henry, like is client company staff internal assistance still a major factor of these hijackings and attacks? I'm going to leave that question, Henry, unless you want to comment on it, for Ferdy, because he actually had done a lot of work in that arena, hands-on in warehouses and all that. You know, he followed that train and maybe do. But any comments on that? And the last one, how does the limp mode connection work with Mix?
Yeah, so I'll answer those quickly. So I think fundamentally, when it comes to staff, our question is the same. So the bulk of the people that work in transport and logistics is passionate about this, passionate about moving it forward. The challenge that you do have is you always have a component of that feels differently. And I think it's really important to have mechanisms to identify those individuals and get them out of your organization. And then the last one is a technical question. So I'm happy for that, for the gent or the lady to just reach out to us. But it's effectively an OEM function that we just enable through our integration and communication with the in-vehicle hardware. So it's actually something that sits on an OEM level.
Okay, Jed, we will pass that. We'll Henry has that question. We'll follow up on that question with Henry for you. Right, Henry, thank you so much for the comprehensive presentation you gave and offering the service. We've got so much at our fingertips to use. And I must be honest and say that I don't think we're anywhere near using what we are capable of using, you know, as a combined industry. I'm going to come to this at the end, but I do believe that there is a need now we used to have the SA Transport Security Association where everybody worked together. I think there's a need for that, but let's get to that at the end. I'm now going to introduce Ferdy from Pinnacle Risk Management. Ferdy I've known for many years. We've been in helicopters together and that. And Ferdy is now involved across the entire supply chain from warehouses to on-road hijacking. I see he's got people out on the entry on other routes. And Ferdy Gabi has hands-on experience out where the rubber meets the road. Let's put it that way. Ferdy, how's it looking to you out there?
Good. Thank you very much, Pat. Thanks for having us. And thank you very much to everybody joining this morning for this very relevant and concerning topic. Pat, considering today's engagement and the FleetWatch initiative, I'm confident that we continue to make inroads to significantly address or overcome the battle against truck hijacking and then also the new crime or faceless crime of looting. This is, however, and it has always been a long race and it's not a sprint. And as such, we have to adapt to the environment and find context in managing our processes. I think Henry has touched on that. To discuss the shortcomings of legislation or possible political will can keep us busy for hours without having the desired outcomes. As we specialize in providing that key turnkey solutions throughout the security supply chain, I'll share some strategies that we utilize to navigate through this, at this stage, volatile environment. I think firstly what we need to do is we need to acknowledge that the crimes are organized crime with activities well planned and controlled by powerful groups in a large scale, very relevant on the logistics industry. Secondly, we have to understand that the risk is based on exposure and predictability. So I think the key words to highlight on what I just said is the organized crime, exposure, and predictability, which I believe contributes to about 90% of the cases of hijackings or then invasions. These are, however, elements that we can manage and or control to a certain extent through certain protocols. This does, however, require a continuous hands-on approach from the beginning to the end, which in the case with the logistics and the transport industry, where the vehicle departs and when it safely arrives at its destination. In addition to this, we design and implement what we call information security management systems, where we utilize historical, current, and predictive data to safely navigate through these various obstacles. With regards to the historical data, and as you said, from years of exposure in the industry, like most of us, we can identify specific or specifics or learn from specifics. We can identify specific target routes and also escape strategies. So should we have an incident, sort of randomly, where would it happen logistically? Where could it be planned, and what is escape strategies? We understand, or we have learned, heat maps of where commodities are stored after incident. We also have to understand that even in the organized crime realm, there is the commodity going to a specific place, and then there's a distribution of the commodity, and that we can identify specific areas. We identify the MO and the resources being used on an attack. Very important, because that also provides us with the information as to how do we plan or how do we strategize to say this is the obstacle that we need to overcome. And then we also, from investigation, we can then see, and the question was asked, how much information actually did come out of the organization, or then portions of the organization. And as I said, that it's all based on exposure and predictability. And that's portions of where we have to really look to see, how do we share information? How do we find relevant initiatives to say we keep specific information to specific places, and in that order, if we don't expose ourselves, we can manage our risk better. So current data is based on current threats. And what we normally use is we don't take data which is older than 14 days. So we're trying to keep it as current as possible. This will again indicate the syndicate operation to say what is the MO currently, what portions of the syndicates are being utilized to target specific portions of the supply chain, the commodities that is in demand, and we also have to understand that there is specific commodities which is seasonal. So as we get into the latter part of the year, we see that in your consumer packaged goods, there's a lot of incidents that takes place on those sort of things, and we also understand how, from where it gets taken and where the end market should be, and we always look back to say, if it ended, how did it start, and then possible offsets of the product. We then take that data and we design predictive data. So within this information security management system, this gives us predictive data where we combine that historical data with the current data, and it provides us with guidelines. So we can then say we understand what can happen and what has happened before. We understand what is currently happening, and how do we intelligently navigate or mitigate that we do not expose ourselves to that specific. And this can be used on your looting portion. It could be used in your truck hijacking, your warehouse invasion, and we use this sort of method throughout our system to get synergies and to address that specific exposure. So to assist with this type of information, I would suggest to possibly join and actively participate in groups or forums like this, where we can collectively develop partnerships and share industry-specific threats. What we do find is the only way that we learn out of what syndicates are doing is by sharing and by learning from each other and understanding what is the next threat and what is the next thing happening. And so we evolve. But we also find that on these events, you have people that enjoys being a participant longer. But I would almost say get involved, participate, and share information. The more everybody shares, the more we can overcome these threats as a collective. As I said, we continue learning, and essentially what we have to do as an industry, we need to make sure that we continue with our clients investing in what we do, and this is our national clients and international clients. We also provide solutions to various international clients, and they are quite concerned that it is very difficult to trade in the country, and that makes it difficult for all of us. So I think collectively, again, we've got a responsibility that we've got to say we need to make sure that we attract these international clients, that they continue trading with us, and that keeps all of us going. In addition, or the additional benefit to having these sort of programs is always your insurance layer. If you continue or you contribute or you work on these information security management systems, the added benefit is to take this back to your insurance or your broker or your liability portion of the business, and there's quite a big benefit if you go back to your insurance company and you can provide them with all the strategies that you put in place to say, I have this initiative to lower my specific risk, and at this stage I basically lower your risk as well, and that as I said, there's all the benefits with that. Other than that, we utilize a lot of technology and again telemetry, which has been coming through the years. But what we find sometimes concerning is that companies do invest a lot of resources, a lot of money in very good technology. But when it gets to making use of this technology or having this technology work at its full potential, there is a portion which lacks a little bit. And I can take the case of a truck leaving Durban off to Johannesburg. You have all the systems, and you've got the cameras, and you've got the telemetry, and you've got all those things. But the driver still dictates as to when does he stop, how does he stop, what does he do. And those are programs which we can actually then write and say, what we require you to do is these specific things. If you stick to these specifics, your telemetry allows you to have all this pre-warnings and early detection makes the world of difference. The earlier we detect an incident happening, the quicker we can respond to it, the quicker we can respond to that specific area, and the quicker we can address that area, be it through all the different service providers, or be it that we push it back into government to say this is what we require and this is how we would want to address it. So I would urge people to really not just invest in your technology, but utilize your technology correctly. What we do know is it's not everybody's core business to sit and look at all these things, but there is a lot of companies out there that has got the expertise that can take your technology and run it into a type of bureau environment where they can then provide this function for you. So it is something really to actively again participate, as what you do with your information security management program, is to utilize your technology correctly. I think in conclusion, what I can add is when we reverse investigate cases from the recovery or then the arrest back to the incident, and also back into the planning phase to say, we understand where the load is, now we need to go back and we need to find the bread trail to get us to the point to say what exposed the specific client or commodity to this degree. we find that it's the same syndicates that is involved in the truck hijackings, the warehouse invasion, and the distribution attacks. So in essence, everything boils back to the commodity. If a syndicate or organized crime is looking to find a specific commodity, or they have an offset for a commodity which is normally pre-planned, they would find the weakest link in the supply chain. And I think that is our responsibility to say, where do we fit in the specific supply chain, and how do we get ourselves stronger than the alternative portion of the supply chain? But we have to also consider that if we're going through a phase where about a month ago we went through a massive phase of warehouse invasions, again going after a specific commodity, we start coming in and we start designing systems where we evolve their security protocols that then ups the scale again, to say this is not the weakest link anymore. So what we essentially do is we expose the next link. So it's ever evolving, and you've got to continue to build. But it is from our point of view, we know that they will always exploit the weakest link. I think as mentioned in my opening, it is ever evolving, ever ongoing. So it is something that you've got to continue participating in. You've got to continue working at this. I think risk management as part of an overall solution or business design has become a crucial portion of trading in this volatile environment. So I think I'm hoping that this assisted in providing some insight towards our strategy, and how we utilize our strategy in this fight against organized crime. I think you're most welcome to engage during the question session or question and answers afterwards, to see or have specifics to see how we custom make. A lot of designs of what we're doing is custom made. It is based on who you are, what you are, and how you trade, and we custom design around your operation. So I think if we can leave that for the question and answer portion, and then I thank you for the time.
Wow, Freddie, your experience certainly comes in there. What gets me is that there's so much expertise and skill and technology and hands-on experience available in the industry, but it doesn't seem we link in together. You have made a call for forums like this. I'm making a call, and I'm going to make it now, and I know that Dup, our next speaker, is also going to agree, that we go back to something like the formation of the SA Transport Security Association. I know there is a thing here about a WhatsApp group. I don't think that should be at the moment, because those things are very open, although people try to keep them closed. I think we should, Fleet Watch will work on it. We were involved in the beginning of it. So much good came out of it. I know that every company has its competitive advantage. I don't think you give away that. In fact, you don't give away that. But there are things in the national interest. And Freddie, you made a very, very big point there. You said we need to attract international clients. Basically, you're saying we need to attract international clients to grow the economy, and this is having an effect. To everyone out there listening, after the ATDF truck attacks some time ago, I interviewed the Zimbabwean Transport Association chairman, and he said their international clients are looking at going through Beira because they need their goods to be safe on South African roads. So your point of this having an impact is not only the impact on the transporter, it's an impact of South Africa as a safe investment home for safe investment. And this is having a big impact. Just there's Akadi, do we answer his question at the end? We leave it at till the end. Freddie, a couple of questions have come through. We've got a note of them. So we're going to ask you if you can answer them. We'll pop those questions to you at the end. And guys who are asking questions, that's fantastic. Right, we're now going to move to Dup. Dup to Brad. Dup, you just need to pop your video on there. Are you there?
Patrick?
Yeah, here he comes. Coming in from the right. coming in at a speed from the right. Then Dup, Dup, Dup. For those of you who joined a bit late, Dup is a very much a hands-on guy. Dup is truck stop manager of the Vaal One Stop near the Volga Plaza, and he's forensic investigator for the Zamele Group. Now, as I said in the beginning, and for those of you who might have joined us just after the introduction, Dup's a believer in teamwork. I've written it down, so excuse me just looking, because that's when he started in Badiers in 1993, built up contacts along the route. The members, some of them are still working with the SAPs. I've watched these guys at work. It's a teamwork that works. It's unbelievable. I've watched it live. I've listened to it while I was going to actually play one of the live things, but I couldn't get all of you get your permission for that because it's a very close group. But on the N3, it's a high-risk route that we know it. There's been a lot of truck attacks there, a lot of been hijackings, but I'm going to push it over to you. You have formed a team along the N3 that is superb. Can you give us an insight into what's happening along one of the busiest routes in Southern Africa?
Thank you, Patrick. I just want to emphasize that although I'm employed by Zamele Truck Stop Enterprises, I'm not talking or representing Zamele or N3 TC with regards to this webinar. However, you will see my slideshow on screen, my PowerPoint slideshow. I will go through it quickly, and afterwards people can ask questions about it. This is the information on this slideshow I got from Zamele Truck Stop Enterprises. And it's up to the end of the year of 2019. So I'm just going quickly through them. Okay, there's the three factors that we use, the three S's on the N3 National Highway: safety, which includes accidents, route-related incidents, security, fraud, crime, theft, hijacking, looting, and we need to address these issues by intelligence-driven operations and cooperation. As Ferdi and Henry said, we need to cooperate, and we need to get all this information together. So I'll discuss that a little bit later, how we can maybe do that. Stability, other incident groups destabilizing the route. That is community protests and service delivery protests and ATDF, etc., etc. I'm not going into that a lot. We know all of what's going on there. But that's a big influence on the route, the safety and security of the route. Although I'm talking about the N3 and most of these slides are related to the N3, this actually concerns all the major routes and high-risk area, high-risk routes in South Africa where there is problems. So most of these problems do exist on the other routes, although the N3 is a really high-risk route for hijackings, and as with these recent ATDF actions and the burning of trucks and stuff, started on the N3, and there was huge damages and also loss of life, which was very unfortunate, by the way. There's a problem of diesel theft and tire theft on the N3, as on any other route. But I think it is addressed at this stage, and with all the role players out there, I think we can win this. The question is asked: are we winning, or are we losing hijackings and lootings and stuff on the N3? I think when all of our players get together, and I think we are in a way we are winning definitely, because all the guys that's on the ground, they are committed. They are committed to make the routes safe. They are committed to keep the client safe, the customer safe, the truck driver safe, the industry safe, and to save the economy losses and stuff. So we also have a problem of a highway queen syndicates, or the sex workers. That's also a big problem on the highway. They are also involved with the syndicates, as all the old investigators and current investigators, they will know that these people are involved with hijacking sometimes. Not all of them, but some of them are involved. Then you have as we said before, as Ferdy and Patrick, all of you mentioned, there is some driver involvement, and in any organization there is bad rotten apples and stuff. But even in the police force and the metro police and traffic department, traffic and way police official companies and drivers involved. In most of the driving cases that I worked with in my career is that we found that the driver is somehow involved either directly or indirectly. What I mean by directly is that he works with a syndicate or he's approached by syndicate members to sell load. He later on then goes and he opens a case of hijacking, a false case of hijacking, someplace, false lures or wherever. Indirect, the drivers deviating from the routes, from the normal routes on dangerous routes, by stop at the hotspots or dangerous places where we're not supposed to stop. They pick up passengers, which we are not supposed to do. So there's all that factors that play a role in the hijackings itself. Last year alone, if you can see in the slideshow, 1.2 billion rand damages was on the N3 just because of a protest, the ATDF protests on the road. 50 of them were on the N3. 74 trucks were burned all over, of which 50 were on the N3. So that is a huge blow to the South African economy. You got the entities involved as driver associations, communities with their service delivery protests, etc. Root causes, political protests against government and service delivery, self-interest at accident scenes by loot, opportunistic by help yourself while it's there, especially on accident scenes. And it's all over South Africa that this happens. It's not on specific routes. It's happening all over, and it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. The incidents in 2019, you can go through that on your own. Some statistics of crashes and drop loads, fires, obstructions. If you look at the crime that on this graph, it's not very high, but it's not the real presentation of crime or a real picture of crime on the N3, because much of a crime that happens on the N3, for example, is reported in other police areas like Heidelberg, Vosloorus and that. And that you'll see on the next slide. Hijacking top province area and places, it's on the N3 especially. Top towns for truck hijackings, Ekurhuleni, Johannesburg, eThekwini. Top provinces, Gauteng, Mpumalanga and KZN. The top 4 areas of reported truck hijacking, where the actual cases are reported, is Heidelberg, Kenton Park, Alberton, Vosloorus. A lot of our police stations as well, but these are the top areas where it is reported. With reported truck hijacks on the N3 National Highway versus the figures from the SAPS, you can go through that. That is also for a 3-year period. I just want to add with this slide that I'm showing on the screen now, that actually, I don't think the stats will ever be 100% correct, because a lot of hijackings is not even reported. When tracking companies or tracking agents or whatever recover a hijacked truck and the load is intact, it was maybe a load that the syndicate wasn't interested in, and there's nothing wrong with the truck, they don't even report it to police because of red tape and the circulation of a vehicle and the impoundment of a vehicle and all that red tape and stuff. So I don't think we will ever see 100% true reflection of crime statistics on any route at this stage. And the last one is, you can just have a look at that. You can see there's a decline in 2019. But I think after this lockdown, say from 11 fall, as Patrick said, we're going to see there's going to be incline. There was a decline in 2019, but over the same period as Fergie and Henry said, there's a incline, and it's going to get bad. It's going to be escalating towards Christmas, so the guys will have to get their plans in order. To go back to what Fergie and then Henry also said, we need to get a system in place, either WhatsApp groups or any kind of system or a early warning system for it's safe for especially for fleet for service delivery protests anywhere in South Africa on the roads. That we need the controllers and the companies and those guys. They need to be on some group, say like a WhatsApp group or whatever, where they can get their early warnings and they can also report incidents that their drivers see on the roads firsthand. There's a lot to discuss about groups and early warning systems and databases and that kind of stuff. But somehow we need to centralize info, modus operandis, hotspot areas, high risk areas on the routes, and so that it can be distributed to hauliers, fleet owners, controllers and stuff, so that they can plan the routes and stuff to stay away from these areas. So I'm in the process with other role players to do a database. It's still in the early processes and stages and stuff. But me and Patrick will talk about that when we see each other again. But I think at the end of the day, cooperation between all the tracking companies, all the controllers, we need that cooperation, as well as the police force. When we have to contact the police, maybe from high up, from provincial or from national police commissioner side, contact person, where we can relay this information to where the hotspots are. They should know where the hotspots are, but maybe we can interact as well with the police. I think that will be excellent. And that is the end for me for now. As I said, thank you for the opportunity. I think this topic is very near to all our hearts, and we need to address this issue.
Dip, thank you so much for that. Yeah, isn't it amazing that the whole thing that's coming through, the central message that's coming through here is cooperation and holding hands and going forward together, sharing information, getting groups in place, getting the expertise. We've got a university of knowledge in this industry. And what's happened is that, as Ferdy said, and always has been, and as Henry said, and as Duke knows, it's organized crime. It's not just random stuff. It's, hijacking is organized syndicate. Looting is when the truck rolls or something like that, and the guys get on, the shop has arrived. But the main thing the theme I see coming through here is cooperation. And that used to be, and also with the SAPs, with the police, you got good contact with them, we all got good contact with the police, but we need to formalize some type of better contact with the police. There are a lot of good cops out there. Okay, I'm just going on to very quickly. Kylie's waving at me. There's a lot of there's quite a few questions here, but talking about the losses, we're all talking about the losses. Just a quick one. In the absence of Momentum Logistics, Navish Mudley, have you got that one there, Kylie? I've mentioned just one victim of this is a service delivery protest, okay, but it could be anything. It could be hijack anything, because everything was lost. This company operates top-class rigs. It's a best practice company. You can see RTMS. It provides a great service to the country. There are many, many operators like this. Okay, there's also many shoddy operators, of course, but these guys really do a good job. And they have, during lockdown, they were essential service providers, foods and essential goods. And then what happens? And then on, boom, June the 19th, I think it was level 3 then, 2020 in Bethel. The driver's driving along, and there's a protest action there. And the protest action is against the lack of supply of electricity to the residents by Eskom. So what the hell has that got to do with the Momentum Logistics or any truck going past? They were delivering 30 tons of oranges for export. Go back to 30 where it said, a conducive investment climate in South Africa has to be created. We've got to create a safe climate here. And so those oranges were gone. Within 25 minutes, this guy had about 200 people charging the truck, and they tried to attack him. He managed to get out the passenger door on one of the coldest nights of the year, ran into the bush with his shorts, his tackies, and his T-shirt. Stayed in there for 2 hours. And by that time, not only was the load looted, but also the truck was burnt to smithereens. A brand new Volvo 480, by the way, FH 480. And so, yeah, it's tragic, but what is the loss? And yeah, it's a real tragic, of course. And many people forget there's a human factor involved in all of this. Sanwabele, the driver, I spoke to him. He said, tonight I nearly lost my life. He was terrified. 200 people coming at him. It's not easy. It's not easy to be a truck driver in today's world. A lot of drivers are running scared out there, and we're going to lose them. I already know one top-class truck driver who we've lost him to the industry. 15 years he was in this industry. So we need to tidy up, and really a lot of people, I refer to government as well. When I say a lot of people need to take more notice of the freight industry, because this is what happens when you get one incident like that. The load lost 400,000 Rand. To this day, he's still waiting for payment from Sastria. Sastria takes a long time to pay. The rig, 2.3 million Rand. Their fixed costs in the region of 7,000 Rand a day. Now, don't forget all bargaining council pay structures, rental of tracking devices. In this case, it was a mixed tracking device. Onboard cameras, private security, comes to about 7,000 Rand per day. Standing costs on average interlink is about 5,000 Rand per day. And this is what Nivision said. We have to have everyone at our beck and call. We're talking about tracking companies, security, all the backup, and on retainers to make sure our fleet operates safely, protected on the roads. Business conditions are terrible. Have to think of every single aspect. Business conditions are terrible. And that is what the operator is facing in a nutshell. He's facing losses, terrible business conditions. And we have to get this right. We've got to do it. I still say, a safe environment for investment is what needs to be created in South Africa. Right, guys, we can all put our videos on. Everybody's video is coming on. Is that right, Kali? And a big thank you for Kali. Guys, yeah, there we've got Henry coming in. Henry, how you doing? How did you enjoy that, Henry?
Yeah, Pat, I think it's very insightful. I think it's very insightful, and I think the one thing that we all agree on is that this is a collective challenge. And I think the more we take hands and the more that we put up a collective guard, the better chance we have of fighting this.
Absolutely. Dupes made the point, you made the point, and Ferdy's made the point, and I've made the point. And I saw it work in the past. I'm going back to 1994, when that collective, there were operators, system suppliers, the cops, but the truck hijacking unit was involved. And the sharing of information was just unbelievable, and it was very successful. Okay, guys, we've got a couple of questions here. But Kali, how much time is it? Sorry? How much time till we finish? 5 minutes. Okay, we've got a couple of questions. Everybody who asks questions, please, we will get them to the various speakers and they will be answered. All right? And this is also, by the way, to everyone listening out there, because you can't have it too long. People don't have that time. It's an all-day watching and listening. So I think one of the questions we can ask, please elaborate. I thought this was an interesting question. On corrupt haulier companies in cahoots with drivers. Who wants to answer that one? Freddie? Henry? Duke? All three of you. Interesting. Corrupt haulier companies. I don't know what it means. That's why I'm asking that one question. In cahoots with drivers. So the haulier companies are also the baddies. Any comments here?
Patrick, I think what is meant by that at the end of the day is that there is some companies out there, shady companies, and I'm sorry to say that. But as I said, in any industry, there's some rotten apples, but they work with a driver to sell that load. Either the controllers or higher up, we don't know. But there is some company involvement sometimes. But they
Okay.
work with them. You understand? That is what I'm trying to say about that.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, not fantastic. I mean, the answer is there, and it shows more that we need that cooperation. I would never have even thought of that, by the way, of corrupt haulier companies. I've always seen them as victims. Just to endorse what we've been saying, Chris Centros has just sent in some, excuse me if I'm talking funny. The presenters know, but to all of you out there, I got new teeth. I had all my other teeth pulled out, and these are bloody dentures, and they're floating around all in my mouth. So if I'm talking funny, I apologize. My other teeth are hiding. We are involved in the telematics industry in Zimbabwe and deal with lots of cross-border fleets. This is a comment being sent in. Our customers are choosing not to drive into South Africa because of the increase in both hijacking and looting. They look at alternative routes like Beira instead of Durban. And there we go. Every one of us has said we need the investment, we need safe roads, not only for the investment for our drivers and everything. Guys, is there any last word you want to say before we log off? And this will, Kylie, correct me, it will be reproduced, is being produced now live on YouTube, and those links can be looked at and shared. And Kylie will sort out everything with all the people who have registered and others, and to our wonderful presenters. Anything you want to say, Henry? Last word?
Pat, just thank you again for the opportunity, and thank you for being having the privilege of being part of such an awesome industry. We truly appreciate it. And also thank you for your contribution.
Thank you so much for those kind words. It is an awesome industry. I love and hate it. Wow. Dub, any last word?
I also want to thank for the opportunity and for all the presenters that is involved in this. But I think we must follow this up on a regular basis. The same webinar, the same type of webinar with more presenters and more people in the field, knowledgeable people in the field. But this is an excellent idea and an excellent initiative from FleetWatch. I want to thank you for that.
Thank you so much. And guys, I just want to say one thing before I go to Purdy, is that I found that very often, like I see these meetings, like Zoom meetings with 100 people there, and nothing, it's too much. So we're doing this in a structured way. There's a definite need to get together. We're going to push it. We're going to push it now. What I think I can explain my fear of it sometimes going nowhere by my definition of a camel. The definition of a camel is a horse designed by a committee. Too many members, too much input. You get the driving force, then you get everybody in there, and then you got a racing horse that you run down, and everyone comes on that horse. So I think we'll take it in a small group first to see objectives and see what's going on. I have, by the way, spoken to other tracking companies. Henry, you'll be interested in this, and Bertie, and they are fully behind it. They agree that there is a need as well. Ferdy, any last word, my friend? There's quite a few questions to you, but we'll get them to you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Pat, and thanks for the opportunity. I just want to tell everybody we are all experts in our own rights, but to ask questions, or if you are exposed and you want to speak with us, speak with us. Information is free. We'll share as much as we can. I think we've got a common goal that we need to achieve here. So it's not always about the rand and cents. You're most welcome. Engage with us at any time, and let's see if we can assist to get this wheels turning in a safe and orderly fashion.
Bertie, thank you so much. I just want to add to that. We always point out when we train the cops on our brake and tire watch that the statistics are good. If you can't measure, you can't manage. However, every road accident, we call them crashes nowadays, every death on the road, 2 crashes, we always point out, has a name. Somebody loves that person. They have a family. And the same applies here. We're actually dealing with people. I just want to end on this to take you back to Stephen Josh, who's still chairman of Mixed Telematic. One day he was very angry. And Stephen and I, same with Harry Lowe, Cartrack, and everybody. We go back a long time. Nick Block, now retired. These guys are pioneers. And he said to me, Pat, I'm so annoyed. And I said, why? He said, one of the journalists wrote that I love crime because the more crime is, the more profit I make from our systems. And he said, that is so wrong. I hate crime. One day, I hope we'll be able to use our systems for more positive inputs than for stolen vehicle recovery. That time has not come yet. And thank God those pioneers, all of you, were there to develop the technology that helps us today to save assets and, most importantly, to save lives. God bless you all. Thank you to our wonderful presenters. We love you. And everyone, I'm going to give you all a big smile from my new teeth. Cheers, everyone. God bless.